We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chesam with Beis, the last few words on the bottom line. The Gemara is discussing Kidushin Kesef. So sagt the Gemara, Hahu Gavra. There was an individual that have a kamazbin, Chumre Pesach Yaisa. He's selling these threads that have these buttons on it or beads on it. One pshat Rashi says these are glass beads or other kinds of beads on it. So Asaya he it said. This woman comes along. Amralei, she says to this man, Havli chat sheicha, give me one string of these beads. Amalah, so he says to her, if I'll give it to you mikachesli, will you be married to me? Amralei, so she answers him, Hava me'ever, just give it to me. And she uses this double lashon, give it to me. Amar Rav Chama, so Rav Chama says, Kol hava me'ever lav klumu. If this Isha responded in this way and says, give it, so what is she basically saying? She's ignoring what he's saying. She's not agreeing to the Kidushin. She's saying, I asked you to give it to me, just give it to me. Forget about the Kidushin. Same story, or a similar story here with the same halacha. There was a person that was drinking wine in a store. A woman came along, she says to this man, give me one cup of wine. The man says to her, if I'll give you a cup of wine, will you be married to me? So the Isha answers, Ashkuya, just give me to drink. And again, this double lashon, which means that just give me the drink. Rav Chama paskin, call Ashkuya lav klumu. If she says this lashon, give me to drink, so then she's not consenting to the Kidushin. On the contrary, she's saying, just give me the wine that I asked of you. Third story, also similar. There was a person that was throwing down dates from a palm tree. A woman came along. Throw down for me 2 dates from the tree. So he says to her, if I give you 2 dates, then you'll be married to me. So she answered, throw for me the dates. Over here, Rav Zvit said, Kol shadi mishtalav kluma. She says this double lashon, what she means to say is just throw it to me, and she's not accepting the Kidushin. Taisus says here in the Gemara is bringing all these different stories to show that you shouldn't think that maybe when it comes to food, it might be different, or drink is different. The Gemara wants you to understand that in any case, when she says give, in all these different lashonos, she's just going back to what she originally said she wanted before this man brought up the subject of Kidushin. Who that is, Shaila was asked, how about if she didn't say it in such a strong way, with a double expression? She said, give. Ashki, I'll drink, give me to drink. Or Shadi, throw for me. Mahu, what's the halacha here? So here there's maybe more room to say that because she's not saying it so strongly, so maybe she means to accept this offer that the man is saying, I'll give you if you become Mekudesh to me, Mekudeshes to me. Amar Ravine, so Ravine says Mekudeshes. That if she says just this one lashon, so then that does show that even though she originally had wanted this before this man brought up the Kidushin, but now that he said, I'll give you with Kidushin, and she answers calmly, give to me, so then it means, yeah, she's agreeing to the Kidushin. Rav Sama Barak argues, and he says, Taga de Malka, I can swear in the crown of the king, Eina Mukadeshes, that even if she used this one lashon of give and so on, she will still not be Mukadeshes. Now the halacha is that ain't mukadeshes, that she's not mukadeshes. Here the Gemara goes back to various cases and halachas that we learned before, and the Gemara gives you the psak din for these halachas. This is the conclusion of the sugya of Kidushin Kesef, so the Gemara paskin certain dinim that came up before. The halacha is shiroi, a man that's mekadesh, a woman with a shiroi, a silk garment, and there was machlokes before in the Gemara between Rabbah and Rav Yosef, if it has to be evaluated before a shuma, that it should be clear what its value is. So the halacha is lo tzrich shuma, does not have to be evaluated before. The halacha is like Rabbi Lazar, which brought up the halacha of a man that's mekadesh the wife with a money, tells her, I'm giving you a whole money, but then he only gives her a dinner. So Rabbi Lazar says she's mekudeshes, and he has to give the rest of the money later. The Hilchase Kerave Omer Rav Nachman. And the halacha is like what Rav said before in the name of Rav Nachman, when a man says that he's being mekadesh the wife with a money, but he doesn't give her that money. He just gives her a mashkin, a collateral, until he's going to give her the money. So he said before, money ain't kan, mashke ain't kan, you didn't give her the money, the collateral she's not keeping, so there's no Kiddushin. Here there's a famous taisvis on this Gemara, because all the halachas here, the Gemara brings up the halacha by name. Besides one, by the Shiroi, it doesn't say the halacha is like Rabbah that said that you don't need an evaluation. The Gemara says the halacha is that the shiroi, the garment, this silk garment, doesn't need to shuma. Why did the Gemara say the name? So one of the famous pshatim that there isn't this, which Taisva says here, is because by the shiroi, the Gemara is saying that really we would paskin that when you makadesh isha with something which its value is not clear, it does have to be evaluated for the isha before the Kidushin. But a shiroi is this kind of a garment, a silk garment, that the women know these garments. They know its value, so it's not necessary to evaluate it before. Says Taisvis, this is the reason why the minig is to be mekadesh isha with a tabas, with a ring that doesn't have a diamond in it or any precious gem in it, because the diamond is something which a woman doesn't have any knowledge of its value, and she could very easily mistake and think that it's very expensive when it's a really very cheap diamond. So you're not mekadesh isha with a diamond ring, with a plain ring, without so there shouldn't be any mistakes. Shouldn't need a shuma. That's Taisvis' pshat over here. There's other Rishonim actually that argue on this, but this is the minig Taka Rabbeinu Tam of said. This is the minig today.
The ring don't need shuma,
The what? The what?
The
ring itself doesn't need a shuma. It's a plain ring, and you can see just from the plain gold or plain whatever the ring itself, you know what be'erech, what its value is. But when it comes to a diamond, there can be a difference, a huge difference in what kind of a diamond it is, what its value is.
She's going to think that she's dafka being Makarish
with a very expensive diamond, correct? She's expecting a very expensive diamond. It turns out to be cheap, or maybe even a piece of glass or whatever. Huh? Yeah. You have to make sure that it's a shava pruta. Yeah, he says. It's like shumer. Yeah. Pandarabanan. So now we move on to the halachis of shtar, being mekadesh isha with a shtar. So we learned in the Braise, b'shtar keitza. How you mekadesh isha with a document, with a shtar. Kosav loy ala niyad ayal acheres. So he writes, the husband writes on a piece of paper or on an earthenware, even if it doesn't have a value of a pruta. Bitcha mukudeshesli. So here it's actually this Braise is talking about a father that's writing this, and he says bitcha, he's writing, and bitcha mukudeshesli. Again, sorry, the husband is writing. The husband is writing to the father, that is. The husband, loy, lashna kosav loy means the husband is writing to the father of this girl, which is either a katana or a naira, and the father is marrying her off. So the husband writes to him that your daughter, bitcha mekudeshesli, is married to me, or bitcha meurasesli. Also another lashon of Kidushin that it says in the Torah, bitcha lilintu, your daughter is going to be a wife for me. So this is what you write inside the document, hareza mekudeshes. Then he gives it to the father, and she'll be mekudeshes. So the point there is, it's the husband which is writing this shtar. Now what's the husband over here in the marriage? The husband is like the buyer. He's buying, he's acquiring this wife. And he's the one that writes the shtar and gives it to the wife, or in this case to the father of this girl. Maskef Lord Rav Zera bar Mamol. Rav Zera bar Mamol asks about this. But why does the husband, the ish, write the shtar? Holidami hai shtare l'shtar zvini. This shtar over here is not the way it usually works by a transaction, by any sale. Because Hassam, usually by a transaction, who writes the shtar? Moicher kaisev loy. The seller writes a shtar. Let's say he's selling a property, so he writes, Sadi Mechura Lach, my field is sold to you. And then the seller gives this document of the sale that he wrote that I'm selling to the buyer, and that's how the kinyan takes effect. But Hacha Bal Kaisib, over here it's the husband which is acquiring the wife, so he writes, Bitcha Mukadeshesli, that your daughter is Mukadeshes to me, and he gives the shtar to the father of the girl. So why is it the other way around? Why over here is it sort of the kaina, the husband, that's writing the shtar? So Rav answers, the difference is Hasan men yana dekra, v'hacha men yana dekra. Over there, when it comes to a transaction, buy a property, so you learn out from the pasuk, who's the one that has to write the shtar, and v'hacha men yana dekra. Over here, when it comes to Kidushin, we also learn out from the context of the pasuk regarding who has to write it. Hasam ksiv, when it comes to a sale, selling a property. So ksiv, what does the pasuk say? Umachar me'achuzasai. A person will sell from his inheritance, from his properties. So b'meicha tal rachmana, the whole sale goes through by who? The meicha, the seller. He's the one that is initiating and sells, and he has to give the shtar for the sale to take effect. Hacha ksiv, but over here, what does it say by marriage? Ki yikach, the man takes his wife. So b'bal tal rachmana. The action of the Kidushin is through the husband, which is the one that's acquiring, but over here the Torah says that he's the one that takes the wife. Frak the Gemara, but Hassam Nami, over there as well, when it comes to a sale of a property, Ksiv, doesn't it say in the Pasuk, Sodais Bakesef Yiknu, that you buy property, kesef, with money, but it says yiknu, focusing on the buyer, that he's the one that acquires. So why can't you say that by a sale of a property as well, that it's the buyer that writes the shtar, and he gives the shtar to the moicher, and that's how he acquires his property? So the Gemara says, no, kri be yaknu. You have to read over there the pasuk yaknu. Yiknu would mean you buy, but yaknu means you transfer ownership to the other person. Yeah, you're makna, you give over the ownership. It's referring to the seller, not to the buyer. For the Gemara, my time a is be yaknu. Why are you changing the vowelization? Why are you reading it in this way? Yaknu, as not yiknu, focusing on the buyer. Mishum dechsev umachar, because you had the pasuk before where it says umachar, that it's the seller that makes the kinyan and he has to write the shtar. So if so, hachanami, over here when it comes to Kidushin as well, kri be ki yakiach. Read the lashon of, instead of ki yikach, which means the husband takes, you should read be ki yakiach, which means the girl that's being taken to the husband, meaning that the pasuk here is actually focusing on the girl taking herself. Why should you say so? But because over here by Kidushin as well, when a father marries off his daughter, it says as biti nasati liishazeh. The father, it says the father gives his daughter. So it says nasati, that it's the father that gives. So maybe the father should be the one writing the shtar when he marries off his daughter to the husband, not the other way. Not the husband writes the shtar. So if you look in the psukim, the point the Gemara is saying is the psukim says both l'shainis, both regarding a sale and regarding a marriage. It says the psukim focusing on the buyer or on the seller, so you can't really prove anything from the l'shainis of the psukim. So Elam Rava, so Rava says hilchos aninu. This is halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Mas mechinu rabbanon akroi, and the Torah, the Rabbana that is found the remez in the psukim to say why by the marriage you go by the kiyikach, which is the husband, and by a sale you go by the seller, which is umachar. But really, in the shaynis of the psukim, you could argue on that, as the Gemara explained before. Yibai Seime, or another pshat the Gemara says, Hasam namiksiv, when it comes to a sale, there's another pasuk where it says, Ve'ekach es sefer amikneh. So here in this pasuk, Ve'ekach es sefer amikneh is actually talking about a shtar for a sale. And when it says Ve'ekach es sefer amikneh, it means that the buyer is taking the sefer, this shtar, hamikneh, for the sale, for the transaction, he's taking it from the seller. Meaning that the seller is the one that writes the document, that he's selling it to you, and the buyer is taking it from him. So you see here in this lashon of the pasuk that it's the seller that writes the document, and you have to take that document from him, and that's how you acquire it. And Rashi brings in the lashon of the pasuk, it's talking over there about Yirmiyah Navi, that's taking from, who was it? Chanamel. And so Chanamel was the moicher, and he writes the shtar, and Yirmiyah says he's taking the document from Chanamel. So therefore over here you see that when it comes to a sale, so the way the kinyan works is the moicher has to write sadi mechuralach, and he gives it to the lekeach. It's very clear in the pasuk over here. Mashenki, when it comes to a Kidushin, we follow the seder of the lashon of the pasuk kiyikach. Kiyikach means that the husband is the one that writes and takes the woman by writing the shtar. Amar Rava, Amar Rav Nachman, Kosav loyal and a yar lacheres. So the husband writes on a piece of paper or on an earthenware, even though there's no value of a pruta, so he's writing to the father that's marrying off his daughter, that your daughter is married to me. She's a wife to me. Whether the father took this document, the shtar, Kidushin, from the husband, or even the girl herself took it, mukadeshes shall be mukadeshes. Now, but this has to be midaitai. But if the girl is going to be the one receiving the shtar Kiddushin, that's only if the father is agreeing that she should receive the shtar Kiddushin. And why? Because v'hu shaloi bagra. If she's still not a begeres, which is the maturity at the age of 12 and a half, so she's still in her father's possession. Father has the authority over a Kiddushin, for a katana or a naida. So therefore, really the father gets the shtar Kiddushin. Or if the father agrees that she should receive the shtar Kiddushin. Cause of law, if the husband, the man, writes for her, he's writing this document for her, for the girl, whether on a paper or on an earthenware, so she'll be mukadeshes, ben alidei avia, whether the father received the shtar for her, ben alidei atzma, whether she received the shtar. But now this is midaita. Here the husband wrote it for her, and he's saying, he's writing to her, not bitcha, he's writing to her, you're mikadeshes to me. And the father could receive it for her, she could receive it, but it has to be midaita. If the father is receiving it, but it has to be with her consent. But for husha bagra, here, if it's a case that she's already a begeres, so really the father has no place to be mekabel or kedushin. He has no authority over a kedushin. She receives her kedushin. So over here, you don't write into the star bitcha, you write into the star, you are mekadeshes to me. But if she wants, she could agree that the father should receive the star for her. But Rab Shimon ben Lakish asks a shaila regarding writing a star Kidushin. Star Edison, or the Lashon Gemara uses here, star Edison. Shekasvai Shaloi Lishma. It was written not for the sake of this woman. A man wrote a star Kiddushin with a name in it, but it was for a different woman. And then he changes his mind, now he wants to marry her. And it's the same name, but it wasn't written for her sake. Lishma. Mahu. So what's the halacha? Does it have to be written Lishma? Do I say Havayis liyitzias makshina? We already had before in the Gemara. We learned that from V'yotza v'hoisa. You compare the halachas of marriage to the halachas of Gedushin, and therefore I say Ma yitzia. Just like when it comes to writing a get for Gedushin, be'ina lishma. The star Gedushin has to be written for the sake of the Gedushin, and has to be written for the sake of this woman, as Rashi brings with cost of law lishma. Afavaya be'ina lishma. So too regarding marriage, when you're writing a star Kiddushin, it also has to be written lishma for this woman. Or maybe we say Havaya is lahadadi makshinan. In Kiddushin, I compare one mode of Kiddushin to another mode of Kiddushin. I compare star Kiddushin to the Kesef Kiddushin. Ma Havaya the Kesef, just like when it comes with the marriage through Kesef, loy bin on lishma. There's no concept of lishma when it comes to creating the coin itself. The coin is minted by the government, and you just use this coin. So afavaya the star, so too the star loy bin lishma. It's not necessary to write and create the star with this kavanah of lishma for the sake of this particular woman. So pasadabaya hada pashta. After he asked the shaila, he resolved. He answered it himself. Havaya liitzia makshinon. We compare star kiddushin to the star or the get that's written by Gedushin, because the makra, the pasuk says v'yotza v'hoisa. And this pasuk we see that the star Kiddushin has to be written l'shma, just like the get by the Gedushin. Itmar, we learned another machlokes here regarding writing the star Kiddushin. Kasvay l'shma. So now we know it has to be written l'shma, so it was written for the sake of this woman. But a shaloi midaita. It was without the awareness of this woman. He didn't go and tell this woman or consult with her that I'm going to be writing this star for us, for the marriage. Didn't write b'chlal. He didn't tell her that he's going to be writing it for her. Okay, and then afterwards he let her know that he wrote a shtar already for her, and then she received it from him. So Rav and Ravina say that she's going to be mukadeshes, that it was written lishma, even though he didn't consult with her before he wrote it. She's mukadeshes. Rav Papa, but Rav Shravia Amri eina mukadeshes. If she wrote it, even if it was written lishma, but without consulting with her before, she's not mukadeshes. Rav Papa says, I will explain to you their reasons, which is Rava and Ravina, which argued with him. And I'll also explain to you my reason why I say that she will not be Mekadeshes. I'll tell you the reason of Rava and Ravina, because the pasuk says, V'yotza v'hoisa. So Makish Avayel Yitzia, as we just said before, you compare the halacha of a star Kiddushin to the halacha by a get, by divorce. Just like when it comes to a get that a husband writes, it has to be written lishma, but on the other hand, a get is written shaloi midaita. He can be megadish his wife against her will, so he doesn't have to consult with her before he writes this get. So the same thing, afavoye, when it comes to the shtar kiddushin, sanami lishma v'shaloi midaita. You write the shtar lishma, but you don't have to consult with her before you write it. But then Rav Papa says, I'll tell you my reason why she will not be Mekadeshes. Because v'yotza v'hoisa. It's also based on the same thing. I compare the marriage to the divorce. Makish avoyel yitzia. Ma yitzia be'inon das makne. Just like when it comes in the case of the yitzia, when he's divorcing the wife, you need the das of the husband that's makne. He's the one that's transferring the ownership of the wife that he had possession of. She was married to him, and he's transferring that ownership back to her, that she becomes independent. In the case of divorce, the husband is the makna. Afavoye, so too when it comes to marriage, be'inon das makna. Who's the makna here? It's the woman that's transferring herself, the ownership of herself, to her husband. So over here, you do need the das of the makna before you write the shtar. Just like by the get, you need the das makna of the husband to write the get. Meisvei, so the Gemara asks from what it says clearly in a Braisa. It says, Ein kaisvin shtar edison and nisuin, elo midas shneya. You can't write the shtar for a edison or nisuin unless you have the consent of both the man, the husband, and the wife. My love, don't you think, what does this mean? Shtar edison and nisuin mamish. It's referring to the shtar for the marriage, the shtar Kidushin, and here it clearly says that you need the consent not only of the man, he's writing it, but also he has to consult with the Isha before he writes this. So this is like the halacha that Rav Papa and Rav Shrabi said. It says the Gemara law. That's not what it's referring to. Shtare psikta. It's referring to the shtar, which is called shtare psikta, or the lashon the way it's called today is the tnayim. The shtar that you write, the tnayim, where the parents obligate themselves to give whatever nadan, the dowry, and different things for the conditions of the marriage. Kach v'kach lebitcha. That. Sorry, I skipped a line here. Okay, Rav Gidl Amarav. This is what Rav Gidl Amarav said. Rav Gidl Amarav, Kamat Anoisen Lebincha. What are you giving for the purpose of the marriage of your son? Kach v'kach, so and so. Lebitcha, how much are you giving for your daughter that's being married? Kach v'kach, this is what I'm giving. This is the tnoim that you write. And the Omdu v'kitshu, and then if they wrote this in the shtar, or they made this up even verbally, and then they got up and they made the Kidushin, kono. So this agreement of the Tanoim will take effect. It'll be a kinyan, and hein advarim haniknim ba'amira. This is a unique thing that usually for every single kinyan, if anytime you obligate yourself for something, you have to have an actual kinyan, but over here you don't need an actual kinyan. And the Rashi says the reason is because the hana that's involved over here and the chasana that they're getting married, so it's clear that they're goymer makna, that the parents are agreeing and they're with full heart to give these conditions of the tnaim that they say they're going to give. So you don't need an actual kinyan. But what the Bryce was saying though is this agreement, the tnaim, could be done verbally or it could be done in a shtar with a document. And there's a difference because once you write something in a shtar, it has a stronger koyach to collect from mishubadim, from properties that are even sold off. If it's only a verbal agreement, then that doesn't have that same power. So what the Brisa was saying was to write this down in a document. For that, you're going to need the consent of both sides to agree to write it. But it wasn't talking about the actual shtar Kiddushin. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to the third inyan of Kiddushin, which is bia. That if there's the relation between the man and the woman, marital relations, this creates also a Kiddushin. Minalon. So it said in the Mishnah Bia, Minalon. What's the source of this in the pasuk? Omer Abavo, Omer Rabbi Yechanan, the Amakra, because the pasuk says Ba'ulas Baal, that she was already married with Ba'ulas, with marital relations to her husband. Now, this is a pasuk that speaks about someone that goes and violates a girl that's a naira hamoirasa. She's already married to her husband, and the pasuk describes what created the marriage to her husband, Ba'ulas. The fact that he had marital relations with her. So Malamed Shanasa Lo Baal Al Yidei Be'ila. So here we see that he becomes her husband, the Kidushin takes effect through Bia. So this is the source. Why is he bringing this pasuk here from another place which speaks about a case where someone violated this girl? Is it not good, not acceptable? This that Rabbi taught, that the source is right over here in the pasuk where it speaks about marriage. Ube'ala. At the beginning of the pasuk is ki yikach ish isha ube'ala, which we learned already before. Malamed sheniknas bebia. This pasuk is telling you that ki yikach, that a man marries his wife, how? Through ba'ala, through the marital relations. Says the Gemara, no, he held that that's not a good source because ima hasam, if it was from that pasuk, hava mineh, then I would say adam mekadesh v'hada bal. Maybe over there the pasuk is saying that you have to have both together. Ki yikach, what does ki yikach mean? Kesef, as we learned out from Stei Ephron. And then uba Allah, maybe you have to have both together. So the Kedushin will only take effect with kesef and with bia. Kamash Malon, that's why he had to bring the pasuk of Ba'ulas Baal, and over there it only mentions Ba'ulas, and that teaches me that they're separate. That is, Kesef Kiddushin is one thing, and Ba'ulas Bia is a separate mode of Kiddushin. That's why he brought this pasuk here. Ask if Rababa Bar Mammal asks on this. So again, the point that we're saying over here is that in the pasuk of Ki Yikach Ish Isha U Ba'ala, if not for Ba'ulas Baal, I would say that it means that the way to be Mekadesh Isha is with Kesef and Bia. You must have both together. So Rabbi Mamal asks on this, Imkain Naira Hama'irasa. The Amar Achmana Beskila Heichem Mishkachasla. The halacha of a Naira Mayrasa. A Naira Mayrasa is a girl that's already betrothed to her husband, the first stage of Kidushin. But she's still a Besula. That's the halacha of Naira Mayrasa, when she was married to her husband, but not the full marriage, and someone else went and was Mizana, violated her. So now this is a halacha of Naira Mayrasa, that this man is Chayiv Skila. But this Chayiv of Skila is only when she's still a Besula. She's still a virgin, and so the husband didn't have any marital relations with her. Now, Heichem Mishkachasla. How, according to what you're saying, if we're going to interpret the pasuk to say that Kiddushin is only if you have both kesef, kiyikach, which is the kesef, and then uba'ala, also be it by the husband, so then how could you say that someone else violated her and she's already an Eshes Ish, but she's still a Besula? How's she still a Besula if the only way the marriage took effect is if he was boil her, if the husband was boil her? If the husband was Mekadesh her, and the Kiddushin also includes, like you said, it has to be boiler as well, so in the Bu'ulahi. So then she's not, the halacha of Naira Merasa does not apply. Naira Merasa is only if she's still a Besula, so now she's a Bu'ula already. If there was a Kiddushin, meaning he gave her money, but the Kesef Kiddushin, but without Ba'ala, so then Lav Klomo. You're saying that in this pasuk, you have to have both together. So then, there's no Kiddushin yet, B'chlal. So there's no din of Naira Merasa. So basically, the Gemara is asking, from the halacha of Naira Mayrasa itself, it should be clear that in the pasuk Kiyikach, Uba'ala, you must say that it doesn't go together. Kiddushin does not consist of both together. So Amru Rabbanan Kamed Abaye, so the Rabbanan said in front of Abaye, no, it is possible to say that it goes together. And Mishkachas law, it's possible, Kagayin Shabal Leo Oros Shaloi Kedarka. The man that's Mekadesh's wife, so he gives her kesef, and then he's Mekadesh with bia, but it's a bia Shaloi Kedarka, a bia in the not normal way, and therefore she remains a Besula, she's still a virgin even after the bia, and therefore the halacha of Naira Mayrasa could still apply. She's already an Eshes Ish to this man, but at the same time, she's still a Besula, and therefore someone else that's Mizana with her will be Chayiv Skila. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye explains, this answer doesn't work. Because if the husband, the point the Gemara is going to explain over here is, if the husband is Boil, this woman, Shaloi Kedarka, so then she already has a status of a Ba'ula. At Kanle Pligi Rebbe v'Rabbanon, because we know there's a Machlokes and Rebbe and the Rabbanon about this, and this is in a Braisa, which the Gemara is going to quote in a moment here. So there's a machlokes when it comes to a bia shalei kedarka, he has relations with her in a not normal way, and she still remains a besula. So there's a machlokes whether she has the status of a besula or not. So when do Rebbe and the Rabbanan have an argument about this? Ela ba'acher. If there's someone else that came and was mizana that violated her. Avol Baal, if it's the husband that's being mekadesh her, divrei akoil, everybody agrees, and Baal leo, even shaloi kedarka, even if the man was mekadesh and he had relations with her, and it's not in the normal way, but nevertheless, asua ba'ula, she already has the status of a ba'ula, and the halacha of naira ha'ma'irasa does not apply anymore. Mm-hmm. Now, ba'ula means she's already a woman that was, the husband had a relation with her. Mm-hmm. So what's the source for this machlokes of Rebbe and Rabbanan? The Tanya we learned in the Braisa. Bo aleo yud anoshim. Here, this is a Braisa that speaks about this halacha of Naira Morasa. This girl that's already Moreses, she's Mekudeshes to her husband, and now 10 people violated her. But Vadayini Besula. But she's still a Besula after the whole thing is done. Meaning that it was all a Bia Shaloi Kedarka. It didn't affect her status of being a Besula. Kulam Beskila. So the Tanakama says they're all going to be Chayiv Skila because they all were Bayal, a Isha that's a Besula. Rebbe Yoimeh, however, Rebbe argues and says, I say no, Harisha Beskila. The first one that was Mizana with her, he's Chayiv Skila. But Vikula and Bechanek, all the other ones are not Chayiv Skila. Skila over here, by this case of Naira Meirasa, is Dafke in this Eifim, which is an Eshes Ish, but she's still a Besula. But the others, they were Mizana already with a woman which is a Bu'ula, and therefore the halacha over here, the Misa is different, it's Chanek. Okay, so here you see that there's a machlokes by a be'ula shaloi kedarka, whether she still has a status of a be'ula or not, or a besula, or she already has a status of a be'ula. But as the Gemara said, this is only b'negeya to other people that came and were boil her. But if it's the husband that was boil her, even shaloi kedarka, she has the status of a be'ula. So the question we asked before remains: if you're going to say ki yikach uba'ala means that the husband has to be boil her, so then how could you ever have the halacha of naira meirasa? Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman Yitzchak answers, we forgot, there's another way of Kidushin. Mishkachas la, kogayin shekitsha b'shtar. If the husband was Mekadesh with Shtar, so by Shtar, over here, Shtar does the Kiddushin itself. Just like we see by Shtar, that when you use it for a get, it divorces the wife completely, just the Shtar alone. It also creates the Kiddushin on its own without the husband being boiler. So by Shtar, you can say that the halacha of Nara Mayrasa can happen if the husband was Mekadesher with Shtar, so he was never boiler, not Kedarka, not Shaloi Kedarka, so she's still a Basula, and that's when the halacha of Nara Mayrasa takes effect. Okay, so what's the point there? The Gemara is saying this was the reason why Rabbi Yechanan had to bring another pasuk, Bu'ulas Baal. That pasuk, Bu'ulas Baal, proves that Bia is Mekadesh alone, and Kesef is also Mekadesh alone. Sagt the Gemara, Rabbi Yechanan, so now according to Rabbi Yechanan, Hi Uba'ala, my Avidle. So this Uba'ala, since he doesn't use it as a source for Kiddushin, he learns that out from Bu'ulas Baal. So what does he learn out from the word Uba'ala? Says the Gemara, Ahumi Bayale, what this is learning, what this is teaching us is, Zuniknis bibia, Isha could be married to her husband with bia, but ve'ein Amma Hivriya niknis bibia. Amma Hivriya will not be acquired to her master with bia. Now, why would I think she should be? Because I would think to say, maybe I could learn it out with a kavachayim from Yavama. A Yavame, the only way to marry a Yavame is with Bia, not Kesef. But Niknes Bia. Bia works. Zu, when it comes to Ame Ivriya, she Niknes Bekesef, so the Kenyan does work with Kesef, and it then she Niknes Bia. So shouldn't Bia also work as well? That's a kavachayim that I would think. But the Gemara says, no, this kavachayim is not a good kavachayim. Why not? Mali Yavame, shekein skukavay medes. By a Yavame, I'll tell you, you know why Bia works is because she's already connected to the Yavam even before they get married. She's not allowed to marry anyone else, only him. Okay, so that kavachayim is not a good kavachayim. The Gemara refutes it here. But the Gemara says there would be another source to say that maybe by Ame Ivriya, Bia should work as a kinyan. So I would think to say, by regarding a Ame Ivriya, the pasuk says, Imacheres yikachlei. The pasuk is talking about the fact that a master that buys a maid, he could marry himself, he could marry off the maid to him. This is what's called yield. We'll learn about it later here in the Masechta. Or he could marry off this maid to his son. And then it says there in the pasuk, Imacheres yikachlei. If besides this maid that he marries, he's also going to have another wife. So hikisha kasav la'acheres. Here in this pasuk, you see that it's comparing the maid that he's now marrying to acheres, to another wife that he marries. So therefore, ma'acheres mikne bebia, just like a wife that he marries. So the marriage is with bia. Afal ma'ivriya mikne bebia. I would compare and say that a ma'ivriya could also marry, or even buy. That is, you can acquire and buy with bia. So therefore, kamash malon. Therefore, the pasuk here says uba Allah, an extra pasuk after we already had bulas bal. An extra pasuk uba'ala to say that only marriage of an isha is with bia, not by a omevriya. Now, Rabbi high svara minale, Rabbi that doesn't hold to this drasha because Rabbi learns out from uba'ala the kinyan of an isha. So from where does he know to exclude that by omevriya there's no bia for the kinyan? In Cain, he says he could learn two things from the word uba'ala because licht of rachmana uba'al. The Ketayra could have written without the hate that uba'al, that the husband will be boil. Mayu ba'allah, ba'allah, he'll be boil her. Shmamina tarti. So from here I learn out both points. I learn out the kinyan of Kidushin with Bia, and I also learn out to exclude Amma Ivriya, because it says ba'allah, only her, not anyone else. But now the Gemara asks, there's really a third thing that we find, that we learn out from this pasuk. Rav that says, Barahina asbirali, that there was a chacham by the name of Barahina. And he explained to me that when it says in the pasuk, Yikach ish isha uba'ala, what is this pasuk here saying? Kidushin amisurin lebiye have a kidushin. Any kidushin that a person is mekadosh a woman, and it's done in such a way that he knows who the woman is, and therefore he's allowed to have relations with her. A regular kidushin that is when you're being mekadosh one isha and you know who this isha is. So then have a kidushin. That's a kidushin. Kidushin she'ein mesurin l'bia. If you're going to be mekadosh isha in such a fashion that it's not even clear to you who you were mekadosh, so then lo have a kidushin. Then it won't be a kidushin. So we're going to learn this later here in the Masechta. In the second Perek, Rashi here brings the case when a person is mekadosh one of two sisters. But he doesn't know which sister it is. So now he can't live with either one of them because either one of them could be the sister of his wife. So it could be an isser. So this is a kind of a kiddushin where not only there's an issue that there's an isser that he can't be married to them, but the whole kiddushin doesn't take effect in the first place. because it has to be Mesurin Labiyah. And Barahina said, where do I learn this out from? From this pasuk, because it says Ki yikach ish isha uba'ala, that the Kidushin only takes effect if he knows it's a heter and he knows who the bia could be with. From where do we learn it out here from the pasuk? Rabbi just said we learn out from uba'al for the union of Kidushin with bia. Uba'al we learn out to exclude al meivriya. But how can I learn out this third point from this pasuk, that it has to be Kidushin hamasurim lebia? Says the Gemara, you can actually learn a third drasha, because imkei nichtev kra oy ba'ala. The pasuk should have said oy ba'ala, since ultimately the pshat in the pasuk over here is that it's saying two different ways of Kiddushin. Ki yikach isha is Kiddushi kasef, uba'ala is Kiddushi bia. So why doesn't it say oy ba'ala, since it's a separate Kiddushin? My uba'ala, why did it tell you right with a vav connecting uba'ala? Shema mirakulu. So I could learn out this additional halacha here as well, that the Kiddushin of Kesef has to be in a way that he knows who the wife is and he's allowed to have relations with her, then the Kiddushin Kesef takes effect. So you learn out all three halachas. Okay, we'll finish then. The Rabbi continues here in the next Amud tomorrow.